Shalom, and welcome to our show, The Crossover, a show aimed at bridging gaps between Jews and Christians. Today we're focusing on our series, The Biblical Arts, and we have a special guest with us, Jeanette Cliff George, who is the artistic director of the Christian theater company, the AD Players. And you're going to get to see one of their shows, which actually went on off-Broadway in New York. Her extensive background in professional theater includes acting off-Broadway and touring with the New York Shakespearean Company. Her film debut was in Worldwide Pictures' The Hiding Place, portraying Corrie ten Boom, a Dutch woman who saved the lives of scores of Jews during the Nazi occupation. Since the general release in 1975, this film has shown to large audiences worldwide and enjoys continued popularity through video sales rentals. Mrs. George was nominated for a Golden Globe Award by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, a Golden Apple Award by the Hollywood Women's Press Club, and many, many other awards. She is equally well known as an author, playwright, Bible teacher, and national speaker. In her radio program, Jeanette Cliff George from Center Stage, her unique wit and keen insights illuminate biblical principles. Here's Mitch and Jeanette Cliff George.
For nearly 2,000 years, Jews and Christians have been divided. But now, God is calling for the healing of past hurts and the comforting of His people. Discover how God is prophetically uniting Jews and Christians across the world today on The Crossover. And now, here are your hosts, Mitch and Rosalie Jerome.
Jeanette Cliff George, thank you so much for coming to The Crossover, and we're just honored to have you spend some time with us.
I'm delighted to be here.
I want to ask you to start off here. I know in your earlier days you were in off-Broadway, you were in the New York Shakespeare Company, Philadelphia, Washington theaters, and too many other just to list here, but you were in the secular stage, if I can use that as a overall, and now you're in Christian theater. And was there one event that led to that jump, or a progression of events that you'd share with us, how you went from one mode to the other here?
I think there may have been a progression of which I was not aware, but for me it's a very specific, almost in a time of about 5 minutes that I can recall. I've wanted to be in theater ever since I was a little girl. When I was a child, my mother and her sister took me to see an opera, and I had never been inside a theater before. And we were up in the second balcony, and my mother had brought chicken salad sandwiches. And for some reason, this little child that I was thought the event was more significant than chicken salad sandwiches. And I think it's the last time I ever refused food, but it was for me a call onto what was behind that curtain. I've always wanted to be in theater. And I really thought that theater would satisfy any interest of my life. And I worked in good, I was doing some good theater work. I said I was in New York, and I knew I was a success because I'd been in 3 Broadway shows that folded before they came in. So I was bound to be a worker. And I was on my way to an audition, and it was pouring down rain, and I stopped into what was a little bookstore in New York City to get out of the rain. And the rain continued, and they closed down the bookstore, and I asked them if there was a place I could wait for the rain to subside. And they took me upstairs, which was a little chapel over the bookstore, and the speaker there was Major Ian Thomas. And I had never heard Major Thomas, didn't have any idea what that was, but he's British, and the British just fascinate me. And I stayed to hear him, and he said that Abraham, in order to follow God, had to pack. Now that seems so insignificant, but I spend most of my time packing because I was traveling, and for the first time I heard that what was Abraham's call had a practical application. And I saw Abraham as expressing his obedience unto God by packing to go to a place he had no idea what it was.
That's right.
And it affected my life. The principle affected my life. But what really changed my life was I saw somebody in the Bible doing something that I did. And I I was a newly committed Christian at that time, but I saw no place for me as theater in this body. And I saw for the first time that there was something that could be done by the artist unto the whole panorama of the work of God. And then later I did the film The Hiding Place, and that affirmed that. So in there, the progression, I'm sure, is there.
Wow.
But for me, they're isolated instances. And I think perhaps I may be the first person that put those words together of Christian and theater. And
were you
now,
the first Christian theater in the country?
I didn't know of it. There may have been others, but I didn't. I was not interested in it.
Right.
And I have great respect for what is the generational history of the current believer. And I believe one opportunity of the believer artist is to associate the current believer with the history that has been lived out, worked out, that gives him the clarity of his position. And that's one of the things that we like to do.
Jeanette, what about when you just alluded to it too, The Hiding Place? That was your first film debut, I believe, in 1975. And you had the lead role, Corrie ten Boom. And this movie has been shown around the world and still is acted out today in theaters. And it was about a Christian lady and family that were hiding the Jews from the Nazis, just as a one-statement line. And when you play that role, that must have a significant impact as you, as a lead person in that role. What did it mean to you then? And is this movie still relevant today in your eyes?
Oh, I believe truth is always relevant. I don't think we ever progress past its need or past its definition. And one of the things that bothers me about contemporary entertainment, concerns me, is it clearly, personally as well as publicly, focusing on truth? Or will it stop when the truth becomes uncomfortable? And for Corrie, the truth brought her into what was an extremely uncomfortable situation. She was in prison. She was, as a woman in her 50s who had never known anything but culture and care and the love of that small community in Harlem, there she is, eating food that was degrading to the palate that had been trained, her life in danger at every moment, having to deal with lice and sounds and suffering in that enclosed, imprisoned situation, all because she reckoned with the truth and was under the discipline of its suffering. And her love for the Jew, actually there was no division in her life of separation. They were a devout Christian family, but their interaction and their love for the Jews, not only in Harlem, but under persecution, brought her to that point. And she lost almost every member of her family and came out from that speaking of the fact that Jesus is Victor and applying that to everyday actions. And that, although I think comedy is one of the gifts that God gives us. There's a wonderful thing Christopher Fry, in one of his plays, The Lays Enough for Burning, says, in talking of God, he said, talked about laughter. He says, it's the finest gift from God. If you'd been God, would you have thought of it? And I believe now we're only now reckoning with the healing properties of laughter, which is honorable and is pleasing to God. But I also believe that the artist today must be willing to go through the consequences of being a truth sayer. And so I feel the film The Hiding Place will never go out of style.
It really hits the
And
truth.
we see now, the thing that's surprising to me, now young people think it was just made. You know, I will be with some young person that comes up that saw the film that week, and to him or to her, we just did it, and it's fresh. And the thing about film is
fresh to somebody all the time.
It's fresh to somebody. It's like the Word of God. It's fresh today.
That's right. You know, when you talk about comedy, I remember seeing one of your plays, Abraham and Sarah. I don't know the exact name, but it was about Abraham and Sarah. Okay, there you go. And it was comical, and it was also inspiring. It was excellent. And then I've seen other plays that you are dealing just really head-on, say, with Jesus. So I've seen your company do Old Testament and New Testament. And I don't know if in your own style, are you consciously, do you see yourself bridging gaps between the two religions, Jews and Christians, consciously or unconsciously, or it just happening? Or
No, I think that's the bridge of the artist. And since I am a believer, I see it as the bridge of the believer artist. It is the portrayal of God and the love of God. In my own pilgrimage, and I'm very emotional about this, I became more aware of the love of God when I got into studying the Old Testament, because the love of God bleeds through every story. And as a Christian, I learned my heritage in delving with the stories. Also, they're stories. Mm-hmm. And as a theater person, I'm a storyteller. Abraham and Sarah, and we have one coming up that's called Myrtle. It's the story of the book of Esther. And we don't label it as that, not because we're trying to conceal it, but so you'll be surprised by it. But I believe we reach out to the marketplace, Jew, Gentile, Christian.
Embrace them both.
And it's the love of God.
Jeanette, in the last 2 minutes that we have here, share with us on the different arms of the AD theaters. You're more than just a theater here in Houston. Share with us about the academy, the troupe that travels.
All right.
Take it as brief as you can.
I would try to be brief. I'm amazed by it. But I think our theater is like a prism, and each cut of its glass reflects in a different area. We have 2 units that travel. They go all over the country. Somebody asked us if we went as far as Beaumont, and I said, well, we went to Israel. That's a very
right
bit of a stretch. And we're available throughout the country. We go into public schools. We have programs that address drug and alcohol abuse. We go and we do library shows encouraging the people to read. We're used in many arms of our youth program, and we have a full-time children's theater that runs concurrently with our main stage. We have an academy, has theater training in many different disciplines, and we have an intern program which brings new people into the work. And all of these areas come from one small source, and I stand amazed in the middle of it. And but it's a wonderful variety of outreach. We go to the churches, we go to conferences, we go to schools, and we work with people in need from the hospitals. We do all kinds of programs.
You are multifaceted, big time.
Thank you.
Last question, Ms. Jeanette, is what dreams and visions do you see yet for the AD Theater? And what about for Jeanette Cliff George herself? What dream has not been realized in your life that you would like to see in your day?
Tomorrow has not been realized. Today is wonderful, but tomorrow has not been realized. And I see the theater growing. We look for land that we might build a theater complex, not because my needs are for a theater, but because growth is inevitable. And I hope to see a time when the AD Players or any company of its signature will be an accepted part in the marketplace, that we will not be over in a corner exclusive unto this interest, but we'll be in the marketplace where I believe the artist must speak. The believer artist's first responsibility is to speak to the church, but through the church out into a world. And I happen to believe the theater is a wonderful thing, and I want to have it have outreach.
Thank you so much, Jeanette, and we're so glad you came to share with us. And I'll just tell you that you've been a blessing to the community, that I know I can take my family to your theater, never have to cover my kids' eyes, never have to cover their ears, and know we walk out of there refreshed.
Oh,
so,
thank you so much for that. It's this community that has allowed us to be here for 35 years, and I'm very grateful.
Jeanette, today at the Nathaniel Center at their opening, we're going to see a vignette for the public on one of the plays that you have, which is John His Story. And can you share with our viewers what they're going to see on TV here?
I can also share with our viewers that we are so excited about being part of this enormous opportunity of the Nathaniel Center and the wonderful thing that it is. John His Story is a play written focusing on those that saw the miracles of Jesus, which proved him to be Messiah. And in this particular one, they are discussing the effects of his healing of the man born blind. And it's two women talking about this. There's comedy in it, there's relationship in it, and the telling of the story of the healing of this man, which was one of the evidences that he is, was, and will always be Messiah.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Dorcas! Yoo-hoo! Dorcas!
Who calls me?
It's me, your cousin Sapphira. Where are you?
I'm on the roof. I'm catching the last of the light for a little sewing. Come on up. You know the way. Oh, greetings, my cousin.
Greetings and news. I just heard it myself. Here, I brought you a platter of sesame cakes cut thin and crisp. They're delicious.
Well, they might have been. I'll never know. The platter's empty.
Oh, yes, I was afraid it would be. I ate several as I was hurrying here.
Oh.
I never meant to eat them all. They were good. Keep the platter.
Oh, thank you. But, dear cousin, I think it's one of mine.
Oh, so it is. I quite forgot. I borrowed it so long ago, I've come to think of it as mine. Now that it's returned, I'll miss it.
If you need it, I'll be glad for you to have it back.
Thank you. Now, I have a story full of wonder to tell you. The beggar, the blind beggar at the temple. You know the one I mean?
Mm-hmm, blind from birth.
Until yesterday, that was true. Now they say he sees.
How wonderful. What happened?
He was healed by...
I can't hear you.
Well, I'm afraid to speak the name. The very walls have ears.
The walls may, but not the clouds. How was the beggar healed?
By Jesus. Shh. If you're asked, you never heard it from me. I'm not one to run against the law. I have nothing to tell.
Well, then why have you come and in such a hurry?
The sesame cakes. I came to bring those sesame cakes.
The ones you ate.
That was an accident along the way.
That, of course, explains it. Oh, tell me about the healing.
The beggar at the temple steps was healed by you know who. And on the Sabbath, you know who, did it with clay pressed to the lidded eyes. On Sabbath. Not very smart, with the Pharisees watching everything he did. Is that a bowl of pods and honey?
Yes, Eli was eating them before he went to an evening meeting. Would you like some?
Thank you. I'll just take a few on this platter. Yes, healed him well as a raindrop, and a healing just as rare. Never before a man blind from birth. No one even recognized him. A seeing face is different than the same face with no sight. Besides, he seemed far less humble walking straight ahead without stumbling. In fact, I have been told by very reliable sources that the beggar spoke quite openly with the Pharisees, who tried to convince him that you know who, was not from God, because he did all that working with the clay on the Sabbath. But the beggar insisted that you know who is a prophet, or else you know who could never have performed such a miracle, which left no way of argument for the Pharisees except to say the beggar never had been blind. Which is so much steam in a baking pot Because we've all seen him lying there begging.
Right.
What a shame. I've run out of pods and have some honey left.
Help yourself. There's plenty.
Thank you. So, the Pharisees called in the beggar's parents, who said they knew but 2 things out of 3. They were shaking in their sandals being called in like that. 2 things out of 3. They said this was their son, and he had been blind, but how or why he now sees was past their understanding, and well for them the edge of ignorance. Knowing too much can get you into more trouble than knowing too little. They would have been thrown out of the synagogue for taking sides as to how and as to by whom the how became the why, if you know what I mean.
No, I don't know.
Well, think about it. A man born blind now sees. It's a miracle. A sign. It might make one consider the possibility of someone being the M-E-S-S-I-A-H. I never said it. I only spelled a word dear to our highest hopes and dreams. The seeing blind man has been whisked out of the synagogue, never again to enjoy its sweet fellowship and services. But the talk is of the sign healing a man born blind. But it's not for that I came. I came to borrow these few pods and honey. So I must run now. Don't let me keep you from your sewing.
And Steve, we know that you have a production coming up soon. Tell us about what's going to be happening here. We've seen a little bit of the clips here on stage live today.
Yeah, John, his story is going to be coming to the Nathaniel Center on March 22nd and 23rd, both Friday and Saturday evenings at 8 o'clock. It's written by Jeanette Cliff George, a signature piece of ours, and performed off-Broadway back in 1997. A very powerful show, a very moving show, and a complete presentation of the Gospel of John. I myself play the title character of John in that show as well.
Well, thank you, Stephen. And Kingwood community, come out and don't miss this event. Support it.
Hope that you enjoyed meeting Jeanette Cliff George and getting a taste of one of their productions from John, His Story. And for those of you who would like more information about their upcoming events or their classes, or if you'd like to bring their company to your city, you can contact them at www.adplayers.org. Or their phone number is 1-800-388-8139. Their address is 2710 West Alabama, Houston, Texas, 77098. Jeanette Cliff George also has books and videotapes and audio tapes and scripts. Thank you for watching our show, and shalom.
To proclaim your love and faithfulness all the day and through the night. La la la, la 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 la.
Join Mitch and Rosalie as they reach an ever-growing worldwide audience through The Crossover. We invite you to become a Crossover partner right now by calling the number on your screen. For your monthly gift of $30 or more, you will receive the Crossover Partnership Pack, which includes a DVD of today's program, a personal greeting and prayer message from Mitch and Rosalie, more information about the Crossover Project. As you continue to support the Crossover each month, you will receive a new Crossover DVD, a monthly ministry report, and your name will be added to the Healing Room. Call now or log on to our website and join the growing family of Crossover partners. And be sure to join us again next week as Mitch and Rosalie tackle timely topics and welcome dynamic guests on The Crossover.
Lord God of Abraham, Isaac and Israel, let it be known today that you are God. We offer up our lives as a living sacrifice. Purify us with your holy fire. Holy fire, you are the Holy One, highly exalted One. We've come to worship at your holy hill. You are the Holy One, highly exalted One, and we surrender to your sovereign will. Oh Lord God of Abraham, Lord God of Abraham, Isaac and Israel, let it be known today that you are God. There is no other one like you. Come now and fill this place. Be exalted in our praise. Let it be known today that you are God. You are God.